Hey there, historians! Last time we checked on India, it was still under Britain's thumb, despite louder and louder calls for self-rule. We witnessed the British government treating Indians as second-class citizens, and we saw organizations like the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League beginning to push back. The British, sensing a loss of control, had gone so far as to split the region of Bengal into separate Hindu and Muslim sections to prevent Indians from uniting against the crown. These kinds of actions outraged Indian nationalists, who began seeking a full-fledged independence. And this is what we'll be exploring today. Our guiding questions are: how did Britain's actions contribute to the growth of Indian nationalism? How did Gandhi's tactics shape the struggle against British rule? And how did religious division affect the independence movement? Our big picture question is, why did Britain ultimately grant independence to India? During World War I, the British government promised to grant limited self-rule in exchange for military support. Banking on this promise, India sent more than 1 million soldiers to the battlefield. Of those, over 120,000 were killed or wounded. How did the British repay this monumental sacrifice? By failing to deliver on their promise of self-rule. It was a slap in the face to Indians everywhere, particularly nationalists. The British government then passed the Rowlatt Act, which expanded Britain's power to arrest and detain Indians without trial. The act was met with massive opposition. On April 13, 1919, a crowd of unarmed Indian civilians assembled in peaceful protest at a public garden in the Punjabi city of Amritsar. The gathering irritated Michael O'Dwyer, the lieutenant governor of Punjab, who had imposed martial law in the region and forbidden meetings of more than 4 people. Troops under the command of Brigadier General Reginald Dyer were then ordered to surround the crowd and open fire. After 10 minutes of indiscriminate gunfire, 379 civilians lay dead. The massacre at Amritsar and the British government's initial defense of it shocked the Indian public and led to widespread outrage and increased nationalism. It also provoked international condemnation and created worldwide sympathy for India's struggle for independence. Pause here and answer our first guiding question. How did Britain's actions contribute to the growth of Indian nationalism? One of the leaders of the Indian independence movement was a Hindu named Mohandas Gandhi, also known as Mahatma, or Great Soul. Born into a high social caste in Western India and educated in England, Gandhi honed his leadership skills first as a lawyer in South Africa and then as an anti-colonial strategist in his native country. His strong religious beliefs, which blended principles from Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity, would play a central role in the struggle against British rule. He persuaded the Indian National Congress, for example, to employ a strategy of satyagraha, or nonviolent resistance, which included public refusal to obey unjust laws. He also urged Indians to boycott British goods. Remember how the British crippled the Indian textile industry by flooding the market with cheap machine-made clothing? Gandhi responded by encouraging millions of Indians to stop buying British cloth and to make their own instead. The tactic proved highly effective, and the spinning wheel became a powerful symbol of the independence movement, as did the act of wearing homespun clothing. It also led to panic among colonial leaders, who began to realize that British authorities could not force a nation of 300 million people to comply with their laws if those 300 million simply refused to do so. And so, on March 12, 1930, wearing his homespun dhoti, Gandhi set off on foot with 78 followers from the city of Ahmedabad toward the coastal town of Dandi. Why? To collect seawater for making salt in defiance of a British law that required Indians to buy their salt only from Britain and to pay a sales tax for the privilege. By the time Gandhi reached the sea 24 days and 240 miles later, his group of 80 followers had ballooned to 50,000. The march and the symbolic act of harvesting Indian salt became a historic show of unity in the struggle for home rule. The Salt March inspired mass disobedience across India, but was ultimately met with violence by British police, who attacked and jailed huge numbers of protesters. Let's answer our second guiding question. How did Gandhi's tactics shape the struggle against British rule? Tension among India's religious groups was an ever-present backdrop to the struggle for independence, even as Gandhi's campaign gathered steam. The Muslim League, for example, desired a separate Muslim state. Their aims clashed with those of the Hindu Mahasabha, a nationalist group representing Hindu interests. Meanwhile, the more secular Indian National Congress aimed to represent all of India's communities. While each of these groups wanted independence, their beliefs, ideologies, and approaches to achieving self-governance were vastly different. Disunity began to show as early as the 1905 partition of Bengal, which separated Hindus into one province and Muslims into another. The move was met with widespread protest, primarily from Bengali Hindus, who felt they were losing their cultural and economic power. As the independence movement grew stronger, Hindu and Muslim leaders began to disagree over things that hadn't even happened yet. Things like the future of an independent India and the role religion should play in the new government. Their disagreements were magnified when British authorities passed the Government of India Act in 1935, which allowed for local self-rule and limited democratic elections, but also created separate electorates for Hindus and Muslims. This meant that members of each religious community would be elected through separate voting booths, a policy that reinforced existing differences and encouraged Hindus and Muslims to form separate political identities. Tensions reached a boiling point after World War II, when the Muslim League won a large number of seats in the legislature and demanded a separate country for Muslims. The British government eventually accepted this demand as a condition of Indian independence. And so India was split apart again, this time into two separate nations: Muslim-majority Pakistan in the northwest and the northeast, and Hindu-majority India, the rest of the subcontinent. More than 10 million Indians promptly relocated to one country or the other, with an estimated 1 million of them dying in the violent clashes that followed. Not long after, Gandhi himself was murdered by a Hindu extremist critical of his call for fair treatment of Muslims. Pause here and answer our third guiding question. How did religious division affect the Indian independence movement? Britain's weakened economic and military position after World War II made it hard to suppress Gandhi's resistance, which had won support from both the Indian masses and from millions around the world. The government couldn't stop Gandhi for the same reason it couldn't put 300 million people in jail at the same time. If one protester were removed, another would step up. Overcrowded jails and Indians refusing to cooperate made it difficult for the British government to keep trains, factories, and other essentials running. India had also played a key role in World War II, again providing troops and resources to the Allies. This time, the Indian National Congress argued India deserved the same rights and freedoms as other nations after the war. Additionally, imperialism was losing global support, and many in Britain saw holding on to the Indian Empire as outdated and unsustainable. Facing increasing pressure from abroad, the colonial government finally concluded that their adventure in India had come to an end. And so, on August 15, 1947, the British government officially gave up and granted India full independence, ending 89 years of direct foreign rule. Until next time, historians, keep your eyes open because history is everywhere. Hey!